Yeah, so this is basically just a distortion plugin. So if you can just dial in the color, and you just add a little bit more distortion on top of that, and then use the preamp to just boost that volume up a little bit. The FabFilter Pro C is just basically compression. Not a lot really. In fact, you could say there's not actually any compression going on, but there is ever so slightly. So I'm just bringing down these peaks here, and then I'm using the pumping style just to give it a bit more movement, and that just keeps it. And then with the attack, I use that to, so if you move the attack, you can actually set it back further in the mix. Fast attack, nice and close, bringing it back, you can push it slightly back in the mix. I think I had it roughly about there. And then this filter, I just automated the high and the low. I don't think I actually automated the high, it's just the low, so you can hear it here. And it just cuts that out, sweeps it out, and then back in for the first drop. Okay, so that's the drums. So if I go into this melody now, so sticking to the 1 bar loop, and this section is basically, I didn't use any synthesizers in this. This is just a one shot from Vengeance. I rolled off some of the tail end of it to make it more plucky, and then I sort of automated the velocity so it loops a bit better. So if it's all just one hit every time, it can get boring very quickly. So I also automated the cutoff. So I'm just cutting off some of the highs, and it just gives it that better dynamic when you listen to it. So it doesn't sound like it's just being played on the beat every time. And then I used, so I could have just done it like this. And that's just, yeah, that would have been fine like that, but I added this to it as well. It's very subtle. You can hear it a bit better in the mastered version, because at the minute this is the pre-master version. But that just ends that loop with just a different sound on that last note. And that just helps it re-loop basically. That's all I've done that for. Nothing special going on here. That's just a one shot. Not another Vengeance synth one shot. And I think, yeah, so I brought it into, it's under Tom, but because of this processing chain that I'm using, so I'm using the Soundgoodizer, which is basically a multi-band compressor, and you can use different settings in it. So you've got the low, mid, highs, and I thought that this one is perfect because if I turn that off, you can hear the difference. You can barely hear it. So this just boosts them frequencies up that end, and then you can just turn the knob to where you like it. That's it. I love simple plugins like that. I'm not much of a technical person, so a simple thing like that saves so much time. You dial it in, you move on. On to the next one, which is a stereo enhancer. I use the 4 strings preset, and what I've done is I put that on it, so if you listen to it without, right bang in the middle, because I think them one shots are mono anyway. So then you add the stereo enhancer, just opens it right up. And then what I've done is I just dialed it back to where I want it to sit in that stereo field. Just a simple reverb. In fact, I only just touched it with a reverb, maybe just to give it a bit more sort of presence. The delay, reverb and free filter are just for filtering in and out throughout the track. This is also just used as a filter. And the peak controller, it's cutting out something somewhere. I don't know where, but I use this a lot because if you want certain sounds to be the sound that sort of sticks out, I would recommend using the peak controller, and it will duck other sounds when this one plays. So that's really handy on sort of layering which ones you want to be up front and which ones you want to be sitting behind, and what sounds are more prominent in the mix. Okay, so that's the synth side. So now let's go on to the bass line. Let's just loop that. So I used contact and 3x oscillator. So if I turn the 3x oscillator off, that's my sub element for that one. And in contact, I'm using the Seven Skies Get Low, and this is great for if it's kind of like a Omnisphere or Nexus, where you just have a bank of sounds which are samples, which you can sort of manipulate in the plugin, which is great because you can do quite a lot with this. You can pick the layers, turn them on and off. You can actually make different sounds out of samples in this plugin. So this is one of my favourite ones to use. You've got LFOs, you've got envelopes, you've got EQs, reverb, delay. It's also got an arpeggiator. I don't really use that, but yeah, but it's just a really good plugin. And what I've done here is just basically turn the cutoff down on this bass sound. You can't really hear it there, but it's just a saw basically. It's nothing, no like crazy sound design. That's just a saw. And then because that didn't really have the low end that I wanted, it was sort of just missing it a tiny bit. I've added the 3x oscillator, and there's a very small automation here in the volume, just so it rumbles when you hear it. I don't think you'll be able to hear it through speakers, but with headphones you can definitely hear it. Once again, just a repetitive bass line, and that doesn't change throughout the whole track, so that just stays the same. Okay, that's the bass. In fact, I didn't go into... here we go. That's not being used. This is the Fab Filter Saturn. I use this as a saturator. You can really sort of mess up your sounds with this plugin. And what I've done here, I've boosted the very low end, so I just brought out a little bit more of the sub on that one. And then in the mid, I just brought that up a little bit further. Just hear that without. I mean, the sub's still there, but it doesn't have that sort of edginess to the bass. There we go. And then I compressed it as well using this dynamic meter. But as you can see, it is very CPU intensive, so I'm going to turn that off for now. And then, yeah, so you can tell the difference. Let's just mute that. Let's mute that. Let's keep the drums playing. In fact, let's turn the drums off and I'll show you what I've done down here, which is I used some white noise and I created a volume automation, and it's just sweeping at the end. It's very subtle, but it sort of bleeds into the kick on the drop sections, which sounds really nice. So if I go into the vocals, which I've turned off, which is this one. I think you can hear it better on this one here, which is just a simple vocal. Yeah, so that's the full length. I got rid of that "so good" at the end. Not that it's like it sounds bad or anything, but it just sounds better with "you make me feel." I think that it went on a little bit too long with the "so good," and it sort of I don't know. It sort of ended. It's a little bit long at the end, so I just trim that off and then just use this. And I've just used the just roll off some of the end on that one with the out knob. Processing wise on that, EQ brought up some of the low mid, and then the delay is going to be the automation, and then I used the chorus to sort of basically just widen it. I didn't really want to use the expander that I use on the other ones. I thought, and maybe chorus, it will just set it apart from everything else. And it doesn't really have. Yeah, you can hear a big difference. Ready? Now it's wider. So yeah, chorus is really good for that. I also used a Panamatic, which that's constantly moving, so throughout the track it's going to be going from left to right whenever it wants, or just a constant pace all the way through. So when you hear it here and then again, it's in terms of like panning, it's in a different place. So that's really good for adding some sort of randomness inside your mix, which is always a must. And then EQ, just used it as a filter, and then on the equalizer down here, just cut off some of the lows just to tidy it up a little bit. So what I've done processing wise, or effects wise, sorry, is I automated the delay mix level, so whether how much delay I want coming through, and then I also use I automated the time. So when you automated the time, you get really cool effects like this. It's kind of like a riser, and then you get that. If you do like these little steps in here, you can get these little whooshes sounds. And then filter, and there you go.